Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Yoga means union of mind with Atma. Another name for Atma is divine intelligence. Maharishi uses this word quite often in the Gita commentary. So that experience of Atma, that experience of divine intelligence, is the experience of silence that we experience in our meditation. So it begins when the mind settles down completely and you transcend. And with continued and regular meditation, this union of mind with Atma matures. And then the silence stays with you always. In the beginning, you experience silence during meditation. And when you're out of meditation and when you're in activity, you're back to your normal waking state and all that. So that silence is not there as it was during meditation. But with continued practice of meditation, what happens is the silence that you experience in meditation spills over into activity. You begin to feel silence even in activity. When you're working or doing whatever in the daytime, it stays with you in the waking state. And also, when you sleep, it is with you, that silence. And even in dreaming state, the silence is there. So that underlying silence is there in waking, dreaming, and sleep states. That's when it is said that you are completely established in Atma. This state of consciousness is called as cosmic consciousness or Jivan Mukta state. So this is what Yogastha means. You are established in yoga, established in silence of Atma, when the mind is united with Atma. This is the ultimate reality of life. Atma is the ultimate reality of life. And it is a storehouse of Sat Chit Ananda. You have heard these terms before. There is an inexhaustible reservoir of energy, that is Sat, intelligence, that's called as Chit, and Ananda, happiness. So the Sat, Chit, Ananda are there inside of us, and it is unbounded, unlimited, infinite reservoir. And with meditation, we tap into this resource that is already within us. And that is how, when we come out of meditation, we come out with more energy and more happiness, and everything we do is successful. So that is the first and the most important point in this shloka. And the second point is, Sri Krishna Bhagavan says, after you get established in yoga, he said you should come out and act. Kuru karmani. Kuru means do karma, do action. And when the mind is settling down, then you are going to the deeper levels of your awareness. In this state, the mind becomes strong because the thought process is strong at the deeper levels of awareness. So when the mind is strong, your action is also strong. And the conscious mind is powerful at the deepest levels of awareness. So that is the second point. First point is you transcend, experience union with Atma. Then second point is you come out and you act. Third point is abandon attachment. That is Sangam Tyaktva, having abandoned attachment. So just now, I said you experience Ananda, Atmananda inside of you. And when you have that Atmananda, you are content. So you don't feel like you need anything else. So in that state, you're not attached to anything in the relative field. So the reward of this is the individual mind grows to cosmic mind. It is something like when a small businessman becomes very wealthy. Now he is a crorepati. So when he is a crorepati, when the stock market falls or something, if he loses a lakh here or a lakh there, it doesn't bother him because he is a crorepati. He has a lot more money. He doesn't worry about any small things. And he's not attached to that small amount of money because he has infinite amount of wealth. So it is like that. So you lose attachment to the outside things in life because you have inner happiness. It doesn't mean you lose interest in life. You're not attached to them. You enjoy the outer enjoyments, but you're not attached to them. So the fourth point is, once you are established in yoga and you perform action, then you become balanced in success and failure. Siddha siddhyo samo bhutva. Balanced in success and failure. And this comes naturally and spontaneously because this is on the level of experience. You are experiencing that. And it's just not on the superficial level of thinking or mood making. So you are in a big situation, and if you just tell yourself, oh, no, I should stay balanced, I should mind it, it doesn't work that way. Only when you have the experience of transcending and established in that silence, you get the strength and power from that level of experience to face anything in life, and spontaneously and naturally, you are able to stay balanced. That's a very big advantage because you are able to cope with difficult situations in life without becoming very sad or depressed and feeling very, depressed about it. So the last point in the shloka is samatvam yoga uchyate. That is, samatvam means again balanced state of mind. And that balanced state of mind comes from yoga, union of mind with Atma. So that is the recap of last verse. Now we will proceed. Madhavi, since the Pandits are not there, do you want to do the Sanskrit shloka, Durena Hyavaram, or shall I do it?
I can do it, Hemaji. All the three verses, shall I go ahead? 49, 50, and 51.
But now we do 49.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. First, you do the Sanskrit shloka, and then Anita ji will read. Okay?
Sure. So we will be starting with the 49th verse. For today's class, we will be reading verses 49, 50, and 51. So we have the Samskrita for verse number 49. Durena hyavaram karma buddhiyoga dhananjaya buddhau sharanamanvicha kripana phalahetavaha.
Jai Gurudev, far away indeed from the balanced intellect is the action devoid of greatness. O winner of wealth, take refuge in the intellect. Pitiful are those who live on the fruits of action. Balanced intellect, Buddhi Yoga, the balanced state of mind as explained in the last verse. Here Shri Krishna Bhagavan makes clear the distinction between action in which the intellect becomes involved and that in which it remains uninvolved. He says that the action performed without gaining the balance of mind or yoga is of an inferior nature. It is ineffective and weak, devoid of greatness. He asks Arjuna to rise to the uninvolved state of intellect so that his action may acquire greatness and he may be enabled at the same time to gain the state of freedom. Shri Krishna Bhagavan derides the fate of those who are unable to rise to this state of action in non-attachment. He says that they are pitiful who seek only to enjoy the outer field of life, who do not live the fullness of the inner and outer glories of life by developing the balanced state of mind described in the previous verse. Shri Krishna Bhagavan says, take refuge in the intellect, thereby asking Arjuna first to turn within and be without the three gunas, and then remaining established in the state of yoga in the self to perform actions. Yogastha Kur Karmani, verse 48. Shri Krishna Bhagavan wants Arjuna, before he begins to act, to establish himself in yoga. He has defined yoga as balance of mind, a state of fullness, which is state of natural equanimity. It is a state a man is not affected by success or failure. It is not that he consciously tries to treat loss and gain as the same, but that he is naturally unaffected by them. A really good and desirable state which is reached through the practice of transcendental meditation, referred to in verse 45. The endeavor to preserve equanimity of mind without gaining the state merely by trying to view all things as alike may be called hypocrisy or self-deception. Shri Krishna Bhagavan is certainly not telling Arjuna to cultivate a mood of equanimity or maintain a conscious indifference towards results during the process of an action. Any such attempt to maintain equanimity on the thinking level can only lead to tension and dullness of mind. The emphasis here, as in the previous verse, is on gaining pure intelligence or being. It is a state of being which cultures the mind to be one-pointed, thus improving its effectiveness during action. It is unfortunate that for many centuries past, this and similar verses spoken by Shri Krishna Bhagavan on yoga action have been misinterpreted. For this has caused people to lose their vigor and perseverance in action in the name of non-attachment. The result has been idleness, impotence, and the weakening of the very structure of both individual and social life. Here is the dynamic philosophy, which is meant
Jai Gurudev,
to...
excuse me. Anitaji, we will pause here.
Okay.
And I'll make comments and then we will continue, because it is Maharishi's instruction that when there is long commentary, we pause and we discuss the points. So far, what Anitaji had read is about how Buddhi Yoga is explained. This is a new term that is introduced. Buddhi Yoga means balanced intellect. So Sri Krishna Bhagavan is saying that action of those who act without having balanced intellect is inferior nature. It is ineffective and weak. And it is devoid of greatness. That means the action is not going to be successful if you are not having balanced intellect. And so he said they are pitiable. because they care only for the outer transient joys of life and don't experience the inner lasting happiness. We will expand on this point shortly in the next 1 or 2 pages. Maharishi ji gave more information about that. And Sri Krishna Bhagwan is also telling Arjuna to take refuge in intellect. That means go inward, be without the three gunas. Then you are established in yoga, and then you come out and act. So yoga is balance of mind. In this state, one is not affected by success or failure. And when you have a balanced mind, it comes naturally and spontaneously. It doesn't come by trying or mood making, as it had been misinterpreted by some commentators. And Maharishi said that had done a lot of injustice to the seekers of truth because of that misinterpretation. So we will resume reading now. Who is reading? Is that Madhavi?
Yes, Hemaji.
Okay, go ahead.
Jai Gurudev. Here is a dynamic philosophy which is meant to inspire a disheartened man and strengthen a normal mind. Instead, owing to general misinterpretation, it has become a means to incapacitate a man in all fields of activity. It has become a dragging influence on human endeavor. The whole philosophy of karma or action is clearly explained to Arjuna so that he may become an integrated and dynamic person. Bhagwan Sri Krishna says, pitiful are those who live for the fruits of action, those who look forward to the results of their actions are to be pitied. This statement in particular has been much misunderstood by commentators. They have advised people to work but not to aim at a result. It is certain, however, that an action must be done to achieve some result. No action can be performed without some clear result in view. Bhagwan Sri Krishna here only means to show Arjuna a principle of raising the value of action by raising the level of the mind and enable it to rise to the state of unbounded consciousness in eternal freedom. When an arrow is to be shot, the first step is to pull it back on the bow. If instead, in the hurry of things, the arrow is shot forward without being pulled back on the bowstring, then the aim will not be achieved. The target will not be reached. The action will be without force, and the actor will remain unfulfilled. Bhagwan Sri Krishna means that pitiable are those who are in such a hurry to achieve the fruit of action, that they begin to act without adequate preparation to make the action forceful. They are not pitiable because they aim at the fruit of action, so as so many commentators wrongly declare, but because they fail to achieve the full fruit of their action. They are pitiable because they do not know how to make their actions yield the maximum result and bring fulfillment to their aspirations. They are pitiable because they care nothing for the cause. They care only for the effect. In this way, they lose opportunities for improvement and greater gain. The intellect is the source or cause of action. Therefore, Bhagwan Sri Krishna says, take refuge in the intellect and far away indeed from the balanced intellect is the action devoid of greatness. Unless his mind, yes. Yes,
Madhavi,
yes, Hemant.
we will pause here, and
Yes.
I will make a few comments, and then we will continue. Now we come back to the point of pitiful. So, pitiful are those who live for fruits. Kripana phala hetavaha. And this point had been misinterpreted and misunderstood because they have advised people to work, but not to aim at the result. But no action is performed without having result in the view. So let us try to understand correctly what this pitiful state means and what Sri Krishna Bhagavan is trying to tell Arjuna and all of us. So what he means is that those people who are pitiful, they are in such a hurry for fruits of action that they plunge into action without proper preparation. Of course, when you don't prepare properly for anything, then you're not successful in accomplishing the results because you didn't prepare properly. It is like shooting the arrow without pulling it back on the bow. What happens then? The arrow falls right there. It cannot hit the target because it did not develop the potential energy to hit the target, because one did not take the time to pull the arrow back on the bow. So they are pitiable because they're not getting proper fruit of action, because they don't know how to get proper fruit of action. And so they are wasting time. They're saying, I don't have time to pull the arrow back. I have to go and perform this action. But as a matter of fact, they are wasting their time and effort because they are not following the proper principle of attaining good results of their actions. Okay, so now we resume reading. Is that Anita ji?
Yes, I'm here only.
Okay, continue, please.
Madhu, are you putting on the screen?
Yes, I have put it on the screen, Anita.
Shall I go from unless his mind?
Correct. Yes.
Right. Unless his mind is withdrawn and brought back to the absolute state of intellect, a man's deeds in this world will be weak, and that is why he is called pitiable. Pitiable is he, says Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, who fails to commune with the inner divine consciousness. He is pitiable because he is neither able to enjoy the full result of his actions nor to overcome their binding influence. Action is performed on the level of the senses, but has its origin at the inception of the thinking process. A thought starts from the deepest level of the mind. It is appreciated on the thinking level, where it takes the form of a desire. Desire, in its turn, expresses itself in the form of action. That is why Sri Krishna Bhagavan says that the balanced intellect and the field of action are far apart. One is on the level of absolute life energy. The other is on a weak and diffuse level of energy, because as the process of manifestation of a thought develops into action, the concentration of energy becomes weaker. For this reason, Shri Krishna Bhagavan declares that they are pitiable who tend towards action alone, rather than towards a resolute state of intellect first and then to action later. He who practices transcendental meditation and becomes acquainted with the inner divine consciousness truly enjoys the greatest fruit of action in the world. At the same time, he grows increasingly free from bondage and eventually achieves integration of life. This is the purpose of Shri Krishna Bhagwan's teaching. Take refuge in the intellect. It introduces the principle for the integration of life and provides a simple technique for its achievement. Shri Krishna Bhagwan wants Arjun to have a deep conviction and a clear conception of the relationship between the state of yoga and action, and also between yoga and the doer. Jai Gurudev.
Okay, so now we are continuing on this point about why they are pitiable. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says that pitiable is he who fails to connect with the inner divine consciousness, and he is not able to enjoy the full result of action. That's why we pity him. So the advice here is to get to the state of balanced intellect. That's what it means when it is said, take refuge in intellect. How do you take refuge in the intellect? You get to the state of balanced intellect. Then you're taking refuge in the intellect. So now let us try to understand the mechanics of how taking refuge in intellect helps one to enjoy maximum result of action. So as I said previously, a thought starts from the deepest level of the mind, from the source of thought, where it is on the level of absolute life energy. So if one gets to the state of resolute intellect first, at that deep level of this source of thought, and then acts, then he gets maximum benefit because he is at the level of absolute life energy. You're starting from a point where energy is maximum. So actions are also powerful because your thinking is powerful, your actions become powerful. And because actions are powerful, they yield good results. On the other hand, if the thinking is based on superficial level and mind is on superficial level, your actions are also on the superficial level and weak because you're not at the deep level where the energy is maximum. And because of this weakness of thinking and action, poor results are produced. That is why they are pitiable. Okay. So we will do, now Anita ji will do scientific research and then we will take questions. Okay. Anita
Right.
ji, go ahead.
Right, I'll do that. So this verse 49, this is verified by scientific research through Maharishi Transcendental Meditation, through TM Siddhi and Yogi Flying, where the university students who were practicing Transcendental Meditation and Siddhi program increased significantly in intelligence in contrast to controls. Take refuge in the intellect. This relates to increase intelligence growth rate, improved in reaction time measures correlated with intelligence, accelerated cognitive development in children, improved cognitive flexibility, and improved efficiency of the concept of learning. Jai Gurudev.
Okay. So any questions? No question. So we move on. Madhavya, I will read the next shloka because I forgot to remind you that we read the first
Hemaji.
shloka Samskrita. You do the next one, okay?
Yes.
Hemaji.
The shloka we are going to do now is shloka number 50. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukruta dushkrute tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukaushalam. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukruta dushkrute tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukaushalam. Okay, so now we move on with the English translation.
Hemaji, Mudita Agarwal is not online. She's supposed to read it. Can we go ahead?
Yes.
Okay. He whose intellect is united with the self casts off both good and evil even here. Therefore, devote yourself to yoga. Yoga is skill in action. Here, Bhagwan Sri Krishna contrasts the opposing characteristics of yoga and karma, that is action. Yoga is pulling the arrow back. Karma is shooting the arrow forward. One who tries to shoot the arrow without first pulling it back on the bow is said to have a poor sense of action. His shot will not be strong and his arrow will not go far because it will not be carried forward with force. Wise in the skill or action, those who first pull the arrow back before they proceed to shoot it ahead. As the mind becomes established in transcendental consciousness, the state of being becomes infused into the very nature of the mind, which thus gains the status of cosmic intelligence. Coming out of the transcendental state of consciousness, a man regains individuality, by virtue of which he is able to act in the relative field of life, but he now acts infused with being. Such a person is as naturally above the influence of right and wrong as the wealthy businessman who is above loss and gain. In this verse, Bhagwan Sri Krishna emphasizes that the effect of yoga is to raise a man to his real stature of eternal freedom in divine consciousness, where he will ever remain untouched by the influence of action, be it good or bad. This is not because he should be deprived of the good and bad fruits of his action, but because it is his due that while enjoying the fruits of his actions, he should enjoy the state of eternal freedom as well. It is not the action or its fruits that bind a man. Rather, it is the inability to maintain freedom which becomes a means of bondage. Yoga removes this inability. It is the glory of yoga that it increases the power of both the action and the actor, bringing dignity to life in all its aspects. Bondage certainly lies in the field of action, but it is not born of action. It is born of the weakness of the actor. When a small businessman incurs a loss, his mind is profoundly affected by it. This creates a deep impression which comes to the surface again as a desire for gain when favorable conditions present themselves. An impression on the mind is the seed of the desire which leads to action. Action in turn produces an impression on the mind, and thus the cycle of impression, desire, and action continues, keeping a man bound to the cycle of cause and effect, the cycle of birth and death. This is commonly called the binding influence of action, the bondage of karma. When Bhagwan Sri Krishna says that Arjuna will transcend the binding influence of right and wrong, he immediately makes it clear that this will not be the result of inaction, but will be due to skill in action. What is skill in action? It is the technique of performing an action so that the whole process becomes easy. The action is completed with the least effort, leaving the doer fresh enough to enjoy fully the fruits of his action, while at the same time remaining untouched by its binding influence. And not only this, the action is performed quickly so that the doer begins to enjoy the results immediately. Skill in action does not allow any negative influence from outside to hinder the performance of action, nor does it produce any negative influence either upon the doer or upon anyone, anywhere. On the contrary, the influence it creates is wholly positive. The process of action, if carried out with what is here called skill in action, produces good results in all directions and enables the doer to derive maximum benefit from it. At the same time, it fails to produce a binding influence on him. This is because it influences the doer in such a way that its fruits do not leave an impression in the mind deep enough to form the seed of future action. The doer being established in the self, the eternal being, and ever unattached to the field of activity. Jai Gurudev. Mataji, can we have your comments on this verse?
Unmute, please, Mataji.
Unmute myself. Okay. Jai Gurudev. So I will just begin to say, just one sentence about Shankar Jayanti, Adi Shankara Jayanti. We performed it very well. We have now about 200 schools in 200 villages, and about 6,000 children and teachers, they all know by heart. The Guru Puja is known by heart. And, they all performed, and we here, we did the puja, the full puja, and with the Ashtottara Shatanamavali and the Stotrams and all that, and a small Yagya also. So there is no way we can really pay back, what Adi Shankaracharya ji has done, and what Gurudev has given us, and what Maharishi ji has given us. And the only way we can do is, just spread this knowledge and just pass on the light, the lamp to whomever we can. So coming back, you already said everything. I really don't know what else is there to say. You read everything very beautifully, very clearly. Now, coming back to, I will read again, both the verses, verse 49 and 50. Far away indeed from the balanced intellect is the action devoid of greatness. O Dhananjaya, take refuge in the intellect. And pitiful are those who live for the fruits of action. That is verse number 49. And then in the verse number 50, Bhagavan says, he whose intellect is united with the self casts off both good and evil. While you are still here, therefore devote yourself to yoga, and yoga is skill in action. So this whole verse 50 is all about yoga only. Because yoga is first of all union. Yoga is union. So when you are in union, naturally you are full of knowledge and full of that, skill, how to perform the action properly. So, and what does Bhagavan say about yoga? He says, he talks it as the basis of an integrated life. So yoga is the basis of the integrated life. And what is this integration? The integration is between the union of the mind and the intellect, and then going beyond it and being the self alone. That is the yoga. So Bhagavan says yoga is that balanced intellect and the never-changing state of transcendental consciousness, which remaining transcendent, yet grounded in the very nature of the mind, sets the mind free to participate in activity without becoming involved. So all our attempts now has to be only to develop the yoga as a seeker, whether it is Arjuna or whether it is, any seeker who is reading the Bhagwat Geeta and who are practicing transcendental, is only to develop the yoga. So in the Bhagavan brings out three important aspects. One is, one is of the balanced intellect. One should know clearly what is balanced intellect. That is yoga. The second is taking refuge in that intellect. That means be in that yoga. And he talks about then those who are pitiful and, and are living on the fruits of action. And he says, don't be that pitiful person. Be fully accomplished. So in the verse 49, the whole philosophy of karma of action is explained to Arjuna so that he can become integrated and dynamic. This is the whole purpose. Life has to be integrated and dynamic. Otherwise, nothing can be accomplished. And for this, Maharishi Ji has given.
Did you take it for the year or?
Maharishi Ji has given the technique. Somebody has to mute Nana. I don't know who is, some noise is coming. Anyway. So for this, in the previous verse also, actually, surprisingly, Hema Ji sent me. She said, you're talking about verse number 45. And actually, I took out the verse number 45 and then I realized, how could I be doing verse number 45 and then there is the 49 and then the 51, so I must be doing 50. Then in the last minute, I took it out. So again and again, Bhagavan always says, Nistraya Gunya. He talks about Nistraya Gunya, be without the three gunas. And then Nistraya Gunya Bhavarjuna, remaining established in that state of yoga, in the self, perform actions, yogastaha kurkarmani. So this whole talk about yoga is really how to attain the state of yoga, if we have to put it in the right perspective. And here, the very most important thing for every seeker to understand is that one should not be indifferent. He's telling Arjuna not to be indifferent towards results during the process of an action. So you culture the mind to be one-pointed, and then you culture the mind to be more effective during action. But, just, he's not saying, just be indifferent. He's saying you have to be dynamic, and then you have to perform the action from that level only. So because of this, as Hemaji has pointed out, there has been a misinterpretation over the years that, many centuries, these verses have been spoken of as that being indifferent means that you lose the vigor, you lose the perseverance in action, and you think, in the name of non-attachment, and you think you give up also the action because you say, I'm not interested in the results, I'm not interested in whatever is going on. And so you do also give up on the effectiveness of the action itself, and you become idle and impotent, and then there is weakening of the structures of both the individual and the society. We can say individual, the family, and the society. So these are very clear concepts that have to be understood very, very clearly, and they can be understood very clearly only when you understand and experience the yoga in the right perspective. And so Bhagavan is giving here a very dynamic philosophy to inspire and strengthen the disheartened Arjuna, who is feeling weak and feeble and indecisive, and you're not able to say what is right and what is wrong and what is the right action. And again, when Bhagavan says that the balanced intellect and the field of action are far apart, so he's trying to point out, saying that on one level, one is on the level of the absolute life energy, and the other is on a weak and diffused level of energy. So Maharishi, again, is giving us these techniques. Those who practice transcendental meditation and become acquainted with the inner divine consciousness truly enjoys the greatest fruit of action in the world. At the same time, while he is enjoying the greatest fruit of action in the world, and while he is acquainted with the inner divine consciousness, he is also growing increasingly free from bondage and eventually achieves integration in life. That means eventually he is achieving the yoga in life. So this is a process. Now Bhagavan is saying, he whose intellect is united with the self casts off both good and evil right here. So you become Jivan Mukta, who's, you cast off both good and evil, and you just focus on the work, and you do it at the best possible way, and you don't worry about, what the outcome is, although the outcome will be there. So when that whole focus is there, that is the skill in action. So again, Bhagavan is talking about this yoga is skill in action. Devote yourself to yoga. And which yoga? What is that yoga? Yoga is skill in action. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Krishna is contrasting the opposing features of yoga and karma. And yoga is pulling the arrow back, and karma is shooting the arrow forward. So these both have to be integrated. And this is where the yoga comes. So Bhagavan is saying, if you try to pull the arrow without first pulling it back, then on the bow, then the action will become weak. So you have to be able to pull back that means you be in the yoga, you be the self. Yogastha kur karmani. And here A very important point to understand for everyone to take home is, it is not the action or the fruits of the action that bind the man. Rather, it is the inability to maintain freedom which becomes the bondage. So when you're focused on either the action or the fruits of action, either of them will become bondage. It's only when you're able to go beyond that and be the self, then you're free and you're unbound. So because all bondage lies in the field of action. There is no bondage in the self. This has to be very clear. All bondage is only in the field of action. And in the field of action is why you're thinking, you're acting, you're performing, you're expecting a result, and then you react to the result, and then there is this karma created. All those things, that is the whole field of action. And whatever is there is only beyond that field of action. So there is no bondage in the field of yoga. This verse is very beautiful because it is only talking about yoga. And yoga removes this inability to be able to be bound. You cannot be bound when you are in yoga. It is not possible. It is the glory of yoga that increases the power of both the action and the actor, bringing dignity to life in all its aspects. An impression on the mind is the seed of desire, which leads to action. And action produces an impression, and the mind thus, it becomes the cycle of impression. Another action, another impression, another action, another desire, another action. Like this, it becomes a cycle of, cause and effect, and cycle of birth and death. And this is how the bondage of karma, one can never get out of it. So again and again, Bhagavan, when he says, be in yoga means, that means, be the self. Now, I will just add a few words here. All these are, whatever I speak is Maharishi's words only. Sometimes I just put them in simple words, but it is all Maharishi's words only. So you don't have to get worried, is Mataji saying something out of her mind, So when Maharishi Ji says, Yogastaha Kuru Karmani, that means situated in the self, situated in the yoga, you perform the action. And this is why it is important to meditate regularly. So when this yoga is established, then all these principles which are described in the Vedas about how the action should be, that means, one performs the action with shraddha, with a lot of faith, with a lot of discipline, with a lot of inner discipline and authenticity, and one who is integrated, they are naturally developed. You develop naturally, you become, disciplined, and you want to be organized and you want to be performing better. Because Maharishi Ji says life is for expansion and expansion of bliss. So once being established in yoga, then one also develops the peak performance. What is this peak performance? Is being integrated, being in shraddha, being responsible, and performing the complete action so that everyone is benefited, including you, your family, and the community. But here again, in the Maharishi Ji, somewhere else he has said it, I made some notes, there should be some conscious effort to develop these peak capabilities. You cannot just say, okay, I will be in yoga and all will be done. You have to make conscious effort to develop these peak capabilities. You must take into account whatever is available, whatever is needed to train yourself, to make better of yourself, and to develop the peak potential, peak capabilities, peak energy, and then only you can become successful. These ingredients are also important. You cannot just say, okay, I am in yoga now and everything will happen. Or I'm not in yoga and, something, good will not happen. There are these processes also we have to bring this success, these also have to come in. So this integrity in thinking and the Shraddha and the discipline and the organized in action, one gains naturally more success and naturally remains in freedom from being attached to the field of activity. So this is, every seeker should understand this very, very clearly. And then Maharishi, in some other, maybe it's not here, but he has said that, he has tried to remind that the ultimate goal of all transcendental meditation is to attain cosmic consciousness. Because transcendental consciousness will not remain. It cannot remain permanently. The only thing that will remain permanently is cosmic consciousness and beyond. So all purpose, ultimate goal is to attain cosmic consciousness. This state of cosmic consciousness is difficult to describe, but it is a state inclusive of both transcendental and relative fields of existence. They both exist at the same time, the transcendental and the relative. They exist at the same time. And he has further said that it is described in terms of two opposites or two seemingly contradictory statements. Because why I'm bringing this up is because this topic is yoga. As long as there is duality, there is separation, there is no yoga. If you say, there is relativity, there is absolute, there is this, there is that, then there is no yoga there. So there are two seemingly contradictory and two seemingly opposing elements here, which are being brought together and being presented as in one field as yoga in that cosmic consciousness. Even though this state may be beyond the ability of human intellect to conceive, it is experienced. It is known. It is not experienced. It is known when it is established. For that person for whom it is established, it is known. Just like, it is difficult to describe self-consciousness or the transcendental consciousness too. You cannot describe it in the totality, the transcendental consciousness either. But we can attempt by saying cosmic consciousness is universal awareness and self-consciousness is self-awareness. We say Atma Pratyaksham. Atma Pratyaksham is self-consciousness or the transcendental consciousness. So this self-awareness or the self-realization is a state of transcendental nature, and it can be hinted by the two contrary statements. And what are the two contrary statements here? One, that it is a state of positive experience, and the other is it is a state of no experience. Even in the transcendental consciousness, there are two aspects. Maharishi said this in somewhere, I made a notes of it. And he said it is a state of positive experience and it is a state of no experience. And that is why it is difficult to even to explain also transcendental consciousness in a completely tangible way. And you will only who has experienced it will know it. There is no need for anybody else to verify it. If you have known it, you know it. You are the knower of it. As Shankaracharya has again and again said, Nisandeha, no sandeha. When all the doubts are cleared, then you are the self alone. So when the mind experiences the subtle states of the medium of medication, the mind is the experiencer, and that which is experienced is the object of experience. So there is the experiencer, and then there is the object. There is a subject, and then there is the object. Then in the process of meditation, this subject and the object come together. That is the yoga. That is the yoga. The subject and the object come together. And then the experience alone is left devoid of the object. So when the object of experience is no more, and only when there is the subject, this is a state of no experience. What are you experiencing? What is there to experience? So this is the yoga. This is the state of yoga. The duality has ceased. The duality has ceased. The subject and the object, the you and the I, the mind and this and that, all has ceased. and the unity alone is found. And this is the yoga. And this is the yoga. The experience of merging together. And it is the fullness of this experience. And the experience is so full that two are united. There are no boundaries. There are no edges here. It is a state of no experience because the object of experience has ceased to be. In another sense, it is the fullness of experience because the experiencer and the experienced are united together. And that is why we are able to say that there is a state of positive experience and assert at the same time, there is no subject-object relationship here, very clearly. At least intellectually, if you very clearly understand, then when one has the experience, because this talk is not just for you and me and, 3-4 people here, somebody else, because it's coming on a TV, many people will be listening to it. And so again, Maharishi Ji says the inward march of the mind during the meditation will lead to self-consciousness. And when the self-consciousness is brought out into the field of the relativity, then it pervades the whole of the activity. And this is the secret of yoga. This is the secret of yoga. You have gone into that union. You have gone beyond the duality. You have experienced that fullness, the fullness of, which is totally full. And you have brought that out, and you brought this fullness into your actions, into your thoughts and your actions. So then the eternal silence of the transcendental goes hand in hand with the activity of the world. So the inner eternal silence and the outer perpetual activity are harmonized and live together. This is the ultimate integrity. In this yoga, where the inner silence and the outward dynamic activity are both integrated, then this is integrity of this. So to reach cosmic consciousness from self-consciousness, one might ask, what more is to be done? And so it is very beautifully, Maharishi Ji says, there is nothing more to be done. You just continue with the experience of the transcendent and then coming out. And experience the transcendent and coming out. Go inwards to the transcendent, then you come out again. Because you cannot remain in the transcendent forever. You have to come out. So when you come out, you apply that, whatever it is, whatever that work is, whatever that love is, whatever that compassion is, whatever that, whatever feel, whether it is on the mental level, because we have the karmas in 3 ways. We have the mental, we have the speech, we have the indriyas, the actions of the limbs. So it has to come out in 3 ways and let it all come out in that fullness. So again, Maharishi Ji says, for example, the diver dives and then he emerges. This very engagement in activity is the active part, and all that remains to be added is the other silent or the unmanifest part, which is the yogastaha kurkarmani, and which is done by repeated transcendental meditation and repeated experience of the transcendent, and repeatedly expanding or having this absolute consciousness coming into the relativity more and more. And I think I will stop here. And what I just wanted to say is, I want to thank Maharishi Ji, saying that Maharishi Ji's greatest contribution is that he made the quest for enlightenment accessible to everyone. Whether one has the full experience or not, he has explained the steps very clearly so that one knows what to expect, when you have the experience. It doesn't have to be verified by anybody else. You know it, and and that is the truth of the reality. So enlightenment is the full awakening of individual consciousness to its full cosmic potential, whereby the individual gains the ability to know anything, to do anything, and accomplish anything and everything that is nourishing to his life and the world around him, And the transcendental meditation is the basis and the foundation of that. So I would say Jai Gurudev and Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. So now all of you just go on marching towards being the yogis. Become the greatest yogis. Okay, Jai Gurudev. I will take leave if you don't mind, because I've been with the meeting since 5 in the evening continuously, and I have some things still to be done. Okay, thank you so much. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
I will maybe just give a minute. Okay, she has not read the thing. Okay, go Nana. You please go ahead and read the research point. I will listen to that. And then if there is anyone has any question or anything, please, maybe I'll give you all 2 more minutes. We'll read this for 1 minute and then 1 more minute for questions. And then...
The scientific research verified by verse 50 shows increased self-development through transcendental meditation. University students who were practicing Maharishiji's transcendental meditation and TM Siddhi program showed significant increase on self-development when measured after their graduation, in contrast to the students who did not practice transcendental meditation. The main point of this verse, he whose intellect is united with the self. This basically implies enhanced self-concept, increased emotional stability and maturity, increased self-reliance, increased self-discipline, greater self-control, and greater orientation towards positive values. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. So any questions or anything? Then otherwise I will say Jai Gurudev and leave. Okay. All right. It's clear?
Yes.
Yes. So
Thank
be
you,
in yoga.
Mataji.
Okay, be in yoga, all of you. Thank you, Hemaji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Okay.
Jai Gurudev. Madhvi?
Shall we go with the 51st verse?
Yes, please.
Shall I
Yes.
read the Samskrita version?
Yeah, read Samskrita and then English.
Yes.
Hima Bindu will read English.
Yes. Karmajam buddhiyukta hi phalam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandha vinirmuktaha padam gacchantya-namayam. Karmajam buddhiyukta hi phalam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandha vinirmuktaha padam gacchantya-namayam.
Jai Gurudev. The wise, their intellect truly united with the self, having renounced the fruits born of their actions and being liberated from the bonds of birth, arrive at a state devoid of suffering. Liberated from the bonds of birth, birth marks a step on the long road of evolution. Births continue one after the other until the goal of evolution is reached. Individual life reaches its highest state of evolution when it finds itself established on the level of cosmic life, on the level of unbounded and eternal being. In this verse, Arjuna is made to realize that establishing his mind in transcendental being, he will rise to a state separate from and unattached to the sphere of action. Sri Krishna Bhagavan tells him that because they are established in being, which is naturally unattached to activity, the wise live in eternal freedom and are not bound by the fruit of action. Fully established in the divine intelligence, they break the shackles of bondage and are free even while remaining in the field of action, for they are ever in the state of the eternal, unchanging existence of absolute being. It is a wonderful way of enlightenment. Sri Krishna Bhagavan asked Arjuna to come completely out of the field of action. Being without three gunas, O Arjuna, verse 45, he thereupon bids him act with full force, verse 47. Then, combining these two commands, Sri Krishna Bhagavan tells Arjuna to act while remaining established in self-consciousness, verses 48 to 50, and in the present verse, he demonstrates that action of this kind leads to cosmic consciousness, liberation from all suffering and bondage during lifetime here on earth. Arjuna is given a systematic and direct way to the highest state of human evolution. The first step is to bring the mind to the transcendent. Through transcendental meditation, the attention is brought from gross experience to subtler fields of experience until the subtlest experience is transcended and the state of transcendental consciousness is gained. The march of the mind in this direction is so simple as to be automatic as it enters into experience of a subtler nature. The mind feels increased charm because it is proceeding towards absolute bliss. Once the mind reaches transcendental consciousness, it no longer remains a conscious mind. It gains the status of absolute being. This state of transcendental pure consciousness, also known as self-consciousness, self-awareness, samadhi, represents the complete infusion of cosmic being into the individual mind. When, after this infusion, the mind comes out again into the field of relativity, then being once more the individual mind, it acts while established in being. Such action is called karma yoga. It is by virtue of karma yoga that transcendent being is lived in the field of activity. And when complete fullness of being has begun to be lived in the field of activity, the relative field of life, then one gains all embracing eternal life in absolute freedom. That is cosmic consciousness, Jivan Mukti. That is the state of which Sri Krishna Bhagavan says, their intellect truly united with the self. We may say that there is only one step on the path to this state of cosmic consciousness, a step out of the field of action into the transcendent and back to action again. Thus, we find a man reaches his highest evolution on the plane where he is already. He has only to take himself to a field which is outside action and come back again to his normal field of activity. One dives into the ocean, reaches the bottom, gathers the pearls, and comes out of the water to enjoy their value. The whole act is done in one dive. The technique of diving lies only in taking a correct angle and then letting go. Reaching the bottom and coming up with the pearls follows automatically. What a seeker of truth has to do is only to learn how to take a correct angle for the dive within. This will quite naturally result in self-consciousness, which in its turn develops into cosmic consciousness in the most natural way. The whole process goes by itself. The state of cosmic consciousness is inclusive of transcendental consciousness as well as of consciousness of the relative order. It brings cosmic status to the individual life. When the individual consciousness achieves the status of cosmic existence, then, in spite of all the obvious limitations of individuality, a man is ever free, unbounded by any aspect of time, space, or causation, ever out of bondage. This state of eternal freedom set out here in principle is a result of establishing the mind in the state of transcendental consciousness. Sri Krishna Bhagavan tells Arjuna that when he becomes established in the eternal freedom of divine intelligence, his life will become naturally full of meaning. That is why he need no longer seek the meaning of all the words of wisdom that he may hear or may have already heard as they follow, as the following verse makes clear. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev Hemaji. Bhuvnesh ji has not joined us.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll make the, comments for this shloka. This verse explains several key points in Bhagwat Gita and gives the essence of the entire second chapter and tells us how to arrive at a state devoid of suffering. So the first point we need to understand is how the wise get liberated from the bonds of birth. That means after they drop the body, they do not have a rebirth because they merge in Brahman. The goal of evolution is reached, which is merging with Brahman. For others who do not merge in Brahman, births continue until this goal of merging in Brahman is accomplished. So how do the wise accomplish it? The first step is to bring the mind to the transcendent. We go completely out of the field of action, and then we come out and act. So it gains the status of absolute being, Atma. This state of transcendental consciousness is also called as Samadhi. So first, Sri Krishna Bhagavan said, go inward, experience that silence, and then come out with full force. So this is the second step. And when we come out into the field of activity, and then we act while established in being, that means that we are experiencing silence while acting. That is the Karma Yoga. So you're acting, but you still have silence inside of you. So that part, we all have clearly understood, and, we have discussed many times. So now there are two other points that need to be understood. Maharishi said, karma phala tyaga, or phalam tyaktva manishinaha. So what does that mean? That means abandoning the fruits of action. One is not bound by the fruits of action. So when the mind is established in the silence of Atma, one rises to the state where one is separate from action. You experience yourself as separate from activity. And so because you are separate, you're not attached to the action or to the fruit of action. And in this way, you are giving over the fruits of action to the divine. And this is accomplished when we are transcending, because you transcend and it is silence and the action is not there, activity is not there. So you're separate from it. So you are not attached to the action, you're separated from it. And so one is not bound by the fruit of action also. This is because Atma is naturally unattached to activity. So that is the essential prerequisite for growing in higher states of consciousness. That is, we transcend and we do not experience any bondage with the action or fruits of action. And the last point we need to understand in this shloka is binding influence of action. Janma bandham. So it is the binding influence. What is it that is binding us? When we do actions, or when we do, that is called as karma, action is karma. These actions produce impressions on our nervous system. And these impressions create desires, which in turn become seeds for the future actions. And so we do more actions. So it becomes a vicious cycle. Action, impressions, desire, action. So this cycle goes on round and round, and we are caught up in boundaries. So how to break this cycle is by transcending. Because when we transcend, we are separate and action is separate. So then action cannot produce an impression. And because there is no impression, there is no desire. Because there is no desire, then there is no action that will cause another impression. So transcending is the key to get out of the binding influence of action. So these are the important concepts, and these points keep coming up again and again as we proceed with our a practice of meditation and as we continue our sadhana. So we are running out of time. I'll quickly tell the scientific research and then take question. This verse is verified by scientific research, and the point about the arriving at a state devoid of suffering was chosen for this scientific research. Research showed that there was increased satisfaction in life, both in personal and professional life, in comparison to the controls. The study also showed more happiness, contentment, balanced mood, naturalness and good humor, more adjustment and self-acceptance, and greater optimism. Okay, so any questions? Please go ahead.
Jai Gurudev, Hemaji.
Jai Gurudev. Yeah.
So Hemaji, when you gave the whole link between the impressions and the desires, so that means we have to be very careful about the impression, but how is that? How do we take care of that?
We don't have to do anything to be careful about the actions or impressions, because that is beyond your control. What we do is we go beyond that. Maharishi explained us the second element, introducing the second element. We perform actions in the daytime, whatever we are supposed to do. We have to follow our dharma, and your dharma is to go to work and to support your family. You go and do that. So you do that innocently, but in the morning and evening, you do your meditation and you transcend. You go beyond the field of activity, you transcend. So when you transcend, you experience silence and you are experiencing self as separate from activity. In that process, then you are not creating any more impressions. You reach a state of desirelessness. And then you come out and act. So this process of action and impression, goes on, but we are breaking that cycle by transcending. So gradually, what will happen? You're acting, but they do not produce impression, because all actions we are conducting are because of the impressions we had in the past life or in our past years. So what happens is, in the beginning, when we are not we are beginners, say, when we continue this meditation, gradually this process of impressions becomes less, but it's a gradual process. In the beginning, when you act, it is like drawing a line on a piece of rock. It is there, you say it's written in the rock. But as the nervous system is getting more and more refined, what happens is the impressions become lighter. It becomes like you draw a line in water. When you draw the line is there, but it is not there permanently like you draw a line on stone. So for that, refinement of nervous system is necessary. So from being very coarse nervous system, your nervous system becomes more refined. So it is more gentle, more refined. Though it is more powerful, but yet on one level, it is more refined. So the actions produce impressions that are not so hard. And as you continue your, meditation, what happens is you're performing action, but you're drawing a line in the air. You draw a line, but it's not there. You see? So you're acting, but the impression is not there. So that is the value of regular and continued meditation. We act, we have to act. There is no choice. Nobody can survive without acting. So we act, but we act in such a way that it's not producing impression. That is why it is said yoga is skill in action. Skill in action is you are free, you are enjoying action, you are enjoying all your sense enjoyments, you are enjoying music, but it's not creating an impression. So that is skill in action. And that comes spontaneously by transcending and refining your nervous system. Okay, Namita?
Yes, Hemaji, I understood very clearly when you gave the analogy of drawing on the rock and drawing in the thin air, because after 2 years, I can already see that how it has changed for me.
Yes. Yes, we definitely see the results. And quite a few members have told me, listening to the Gita Satsang, it helps improve their experience in meditation. They have better experiences in meditation, also outside of meditation. So there is great value to this knowledge and intellectual understanding of the shlokas, what Sri Krishna Bhagavan is telling Arjuna, and how beautifully Maharishi had, commented. And, when we read the commentary, when we get the knowledge, it helps us immensely in our life.
Yes, Hemaji, very, very much. I think even in our life, like the wisdom that we can we get in the discussions here, and if we see like there is a huge change, I would say, like in the way I see things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very true. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so we will end now with Shanti Path. Sarve Bhavantu, you want to say, Madhavi, and then we will end. Today we didn't have time for group meditation or second chapter recitation, but that's okay. We'll do it next week.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Jai Gurudev. All will come on cameras and say Jai Gurudev to Maharishi, and then we will end the meeting.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev, Bani. Jai Gurudev, Bela. Thank you, Anita ji. Nice to see you.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev, Bela. I'm glad you came on camera. Jai Gurudev. So, thank you, Madhavi. Thank you, Himabindu. So, we'll all meet next week, same time. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.